Hey everyone, and welcome to our study, continuation of our study of the 250 events in the life of Jesus. And what this is we're following along through the Gospels in chronological order, following the life of Christ. And today we are looking at many Samaritans believing in Jesus, and this comes from John 4 verses 39 through 42. And so what we've seen so far here is Jesus, went through Samaria, typically something a Jew would not have done, someone who was Jewish would not have done. And then he stops and he talks to this woman at the well who was there at noon because she was an outcast. So there are several things we see here that, a rabbi or a teacher would never talk to a woman in public like this, especially a woman of her reputation, and especially she was a Samaritan. So she had all those things against her. And he goes along about telling her about her life and who she is, and then he tells her who he is. And then she runs off back to the city where she came from and starts telling people about Jesus. So we like I mentioned yesterday, she is one of the first people to preach Jesus. And so it's an interesting turn of events how Jesus used this early in his ministry. And so now we see all the Samaritans have come out of the city because she is going on about this guy that's out there and asking, is he the Messiah? And so we see in verse 39 that many of the Samaritans believed in the woman because she kept saying, he told me everything I've ever did. And when they came out to see him, they begged him to stay. So he stayed for 2 days, long enough for them to hear his message and believe in him. And then they said to the woman, now we believe not just because of what you told us, but because we have heard the news ourselves. Now we know that he is indeed the Savior of the world. And so it's interesting here because we have the religiously sophisticated, the Jewish people, right, the chosen people in Jerusalem, and they can't respond to Jesus with faith. They didn't respond to him. They rejected him. But by contrast, you have the people who are considered the outcasts by the Jewish world. Um, they believe in him, and they believe in him because of the testimony of this outcast woman. And so it's interesting, and honestly, it's almost parallel to what we see a lot of today in the world. It's our educated people, are people who are more sophisticated. Those who deem themselves, academics or however you want to look at that. They tend to reject Jesus, and while those who are from humble backgrounds or maybe considered the outcast of society tend to believe in Jesus. And so it's interesting how we still seem to have this same parallel, this same thing happening in the world today. And so we see that Jesus didn't share this bias against the Samaritans, right, or this woman because of who she was, because he spent several days with them. And we need to make sure we continue. I've talked about that, several times over the last couple days. Is we need to remember we continue that same attitude because it doesn't matter. Jesus is here for everyone, and we don't need to look at people as some better than others. And then, so we see that the experience the Samaritans had experienced for themselves that Jesus was true. Their name for Jesus was Savior of the world. We see that again in 1 John 4:14, and it demonstrates that the Samaritans, were aware of Judaism and their distance from it, and so they believed in Jesus being the Savior of the world. And so ultimately, it was on the basis of a personal encounter with Jesus that they believed, and that's how all of us come to believe. Is through a personal relationship, personal encounter with Jesus. And ultimately, it was we see this salvation of a large group of Samaritans provides a glimpse into the universal nature of God's plan for salvation, because before it was just for the Jews, and you had to become Jewish in order. There was a process, and some people could do that, but now you don't have to do that. You don't have to go through that whole process. Jesus is for everyone. He's coming, and he's showing that his ministry, his plan is not just for the Jews. That is for all people. And so again, this one's a little short snippet today, and we'll continue on through these, and and Jesus is going to continue on through Samaria. Now he's going to go into Galilee, and we'll see that he starts to minister there in Galilee. But again, I appreciate you turning into these videos. I hope you've liked the woman at the well series. Part of this one of my favorite stories. I'm passionate about how that plays out, and how we see Jesus there. So again, if you haven't had a chance to, please subscribe to the videos or to the channel so you continue to get these videos. And if this is something that's helpful for you, and you think would be helpful for someone, I ask that you please share them so we can get this message out to more people. And again, as always, thank you for watching.